Erev Tov Shkunat HaTikva. Good morning in Albuquerque. Greetings to all our friends wherever you are around the world, around the United States, around Israel. For those of us in the United States, it's actually Labor Day weekend. So for those of you celebrating, i.e. you're not doing work today, maybe tomorrow, happy Labor Day. And we have got a great program for you today, as always, with my friend Shahar Fertig. My name's Wayne Firestone, and I love the desert. And we're going to hear more about a specific little jewel in the desert from Shahar in the moment. But first, the two of us sort of collaborated on today's opening question for y'all, and you'll see how it's related later. Where do you remember having your most meaningful, impactful Hebrew lesson? Did you study somewhere? Did you pick up some Hebrew on the street in a religious school or a secular university course? Tell us just a couple of words, and if you want to, put in any details, let us know. But we're curious as to your early memories of studying Hebrew and learning some Hebrew words. So it could be really, you don't have to give us an entire Hebrew lesson, but just tell us about where you studied. Shahar, it's not Labor Day in Israel. It's not Labor Day anywhere you are. What do you think? Yom Rishon, the first day of the week for Israelis on a Sunday has always been a little bit of a rub between Americans and Israelis, and they have to work on Sundays. You think it's always going to be that way, or we're beginning to hear murmurs that maybe Israel should have more of a 5-day work week or something?
I think many Israelis already passed in the last 2 decades to 5 days of work, but it will not be Sunday, the free day usually, unless you are in a company that is working with Americans or with Europeans. But all the rest prefer still to work Sunday to Thursday and have the Friday off. So for us, Sunday is going to be, as I see it, still going to be a first day of the week for a couple of decades, at least.
Well, we'll report back in on that as we go through our series to see if there's any if there's any advancement on that front. But in the meantime, Shahar, I hope you will not be surprised to know that in the chat are numerous answers from people who have studied and giving shout outs to their day schools, to different Hebrew schools and programs. There are definitely several who have put in and used our favorite word, ulpan, a very Hebrew word, and a few that went to the ulpan that I did, ulpan Magan Michael, which I have very fond memories of, and I know is not far from where you live. But the magic answer for today is that we have several people mentioning a little ulpan program that is a real jewel that is in Arad. And I know that you will be talking a little bit about that and how it connects up to our wonderful insight and visit today to Arad.
Okay, that's fantastic. I'm so happy that we have people from that experience the Ulpan in Arad here. And the Wujes Ulpan, we will see the building later where you have where you stayed, and you probably had a nice room in the dorms or in a classroom. So let's begin our visit to Arad, that I have a special connection from different angles to this beautiful city. And I am beginning with sharing my screen. And this is my first presentation on a Mac. There, so.
I can do a drum roll here if it's helpful.
Yes. Yes, please. I think I need it. Just a second. I need to share and my PowerPoint. Okay, is it working?
Mode.
All right, here we begin with here. So Arad, city of dreams between two deserts. This is how I named this virtual tour. And we begin with this dreamy structure that we will go back to it. But Arad is located between two deserts. And what are those deserts, or these deserts? You can see Arad here in the red rectangle. This is the area that we will refer to in this tour. You can see it's just west of the Dead Sea, south of the mountains of Judea, marked here by Hebron, and east of Beersheba. To the south of Arad is the big Negev desert in the south and in the west. And to the east of it, you can see on the slopes down in the Great Rift Valley toward the Dead Sea, this is the Judean Desert. And Arad is located just in the middle between these two deserts, which makes parts of the desert there to one of the most arid and interesting in Israel. So in this area that is marked now with this green ellipse oval, this is an area which is also interesting, which holds most of the Bedouin population of the south of Israel. The Bedouin population in Israel is divided to the Galilee and to the Negev. The Negev is bigger, and this is where they are scattered, and we will also get to meet them, to touch it. So here in this red rectangle in a little bit more detail, and these are the places that we will visit today. We can see the city of Arad, that was established in 1962. And the first idea of establishing it was to connect between the Dead Sea and the Dead Sea industries to Beersheba, to establish a city between the two. So people will settle there. Maybe they will work as miners. Later, they went to work at the Dead Sea as in the hotels and tourism industry. We will we will visit Kseife, which is a Bedouin village, a Bedouin city actually, which is about 5 minutes drive from Arad. Between them, you can see this green patch of agriculture where the Yatir winery sits. Tel Arad, the ancient city of 5,000 years ago, is located. The car races of Arad, Kfar HaNokdim, a touristic area, and Birkat Sfira, the entrance to a beautiful stream with a beautiful pool. So this is what we are going to visit now together in the desert. So first we begin with this site. You can see on the bottom part the 5,000 years old city from the Chalcolithic period, one of the most ancient cities in Israel. Above it, an Israelite citadel that is estimated to be 2,700 years old. And where do we find Arad in the Bible? It's Numbers 21. And it tells about the Canaanite king. When the Canaanite king of Arad, who lived in the Negev, heard that Israel was coming along the road to Atarim, they are walking in the desert from Egypt. This is the Exodus. He attacked the Israelites and captured some of them. Later, the Israelites are promising God that if God will let them win, then they will destroy this city in his name. And they do win, but later, probably because of the desert or because of the other nations that are and cities that are blocking their way, they are heading south back to the Red Sea and crossing the mountains, crossing the valley to Moab, where Jordan is, and on their way to Israel, making a big bypass. So here we can see the Israelite citadel. It's not a big thing. It's almost 0.7 acres, while the city, the Canaanite Chalcolithic city, was stretched on 25 acres. Many interesting findings were found in this site. This is how it looks from the bottom. When you come to the park, you climb up to the top. These are the towers that control the gate to enter the city. And here you can see maybe one of the most amazing findings. This was a little shrine, a temple that was used to make a sacrifice there for gods. The stones that are standing stones, these tombstones, symbolize probably, this is what archaeologists think, they symbolize the presence of the god. The two pillars in the front are the place to light incense, to make a good fire, good smell. And the tombstones, the standing stones in this high place were found lying in the ground, covered with earth, symbolizing probably what we know from the Bible, telling us that the kings of Israel banned the sacrifice and stopped it because there should be only one temple, and so it was found lying on the ground covered with earth. This is a replica which is in the site itself. So if you go there, you will see these replicas, but the original is held in the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. Now here on top of the two incense altars, you can see on the squares, this is a picture from the Israel Museum, you can see this dark matter, one here and the other is here. When these were found back in 1962, they did not know exactly what it was. They knew it's an organic matter. They knew that it was probably used as incense, but they couldn't tell what it is. But now, 60 years later, the research has developed so much that with a chemical analysis of the residues that were taken by the researchers with a knife from the altar, and a fantastic finding was found. One of them was using levona, or the frankincense, with the oil of from animal sacrifice. So oil from animal fat together with the levona were burnt together on one of the altars, and the other altar has the residues of, guess what? They lit cannabis, marijuana, with feces of animals, of some grass-eating animals. So these are two fantastic findings that were found by Eran Aryeh and his friends in 2020, 3 years ago. And this was a big news for all the world after this material was lying for 60 years in the museum. Another finding that was found in Tel Arad is this little clay model of what is called today in archaeology the House of Arad, or Arad House. This house is a very simple structure, but it is unique because usually the people used to enter, the door was made from one of the shorter sides of the building. And this one, they put the door in the middle, or on the broad side, on the wide side of the building. Sometimes it had another room or two rooms attached to it. And it is believed that one was used as a kitchen, the other maybe a storage. Sometimes they had benches, but all of them, in the middle, they had a stone, a square stone in the middle, on which a pillar of wood was holding the ceiling, just in the middle of the Arad house. This wood was, they discovered the type of the wood by the residues that were found in the ground. And in situ itself, in the place itself, you can see only the foundation, but thanks to this clay model, researchers can tell how it looked like. They used also, the door was wooden, and they used stones, pebble stones, as hinges. So the door will turn, open and close, and also a lock with another stone. Another finding that was found there was were these ostraka, these pieces of clay with ancient Hebrew writing on them. And these were analyzed in 2 years ago by Shira Feingenbaum and Aryeh Shaw and others. They are 2,600 years old. And with different methodologies of research, they found that they were written by 5 to 12 different people wrote them. They analyzed the type of the handwriting. And they say there's supposed to be about 20 or 30 people living in this Israelite citadel, this small one, 2,600 years ago. And even if 3 of them could write, that tells us the percentages of people, of the Hebrew people that could write. We're talking about maybe 10%, an estimate. So it's a big question of how many people could read and write Hebrew 2,600 years ago. And this is shedding some light on this question. But imagine yourself finding these Hebrew letters in the ground, in the desert, in this excavation. And now we are going to Arad itself. Arad was established 1962, and this picture was probably taken 2 or 3 years later. It is said that it's the first planned city in Israel that was planned from the beginning. The streets were organized. You can see those squares. Architect Gideon Friedman, Yona Peterson, and others planned this city. You can see the ridge that it is sitting on that goes to the left and above. This is called the Reches Kidod, the Kidod ridge. Kidod in Hebrew means spark of fire. And the dark stones that are covering those mountains are, can you guess which stones? Why did it get the name, the spark of fire? So these are the flint stones, and we will see them later. But this is how the city is born. And a few years forward, this is about 1979 or 1980. How do we know that? Because the building that is being constructed in the back of the photo is the famous Kolnoa, the cinema Oron, that was opened in 1980. So that should be either 1980 or a year before. And here I begin to share my personal story with you, because this beautiful couple that is standing there in the sun are my father and mother-in-law, parents of my wife. That maybe it is the baby there in the laying down, Brian and Marilyn, or maybe it's Heli, her sister. And they are standing in the commercial center of Arad that later we will see in a video how it looks today. They have a story that they arrived in 1973. Marilyn arrived a few days before Brian. Brian came from Ottawa, Canada, and Marilyn came from Manchester, England. And they met in the Ulpan, the Wujis Ulpan that some of you have studied there. And here they are in this commercial center, the same day. And we will go back to this Wujis Ulpan soon. But here in front of us, we are going back to the days where Arad is established. And the people who built it found those big stones. These are maybe 1 foot wide, or sometimes almost 2 feet wide. These in Hebrew, they are called bulbus. Bulbus is a nice word for potato. Some of you may see breads, but the Hebrew people call them potatoes. And this is a rock formation that is formed around some organic matter. Organic matter sank maybe a bone of a fish or a shell sunk in the sea, the ancient sea that covered all of Israel some 100 million years ago. It was called Tethys. And the calcium deposits were accumulating around this organic matter, forming these shapes. So these bulbous were taken by Gideon Friedman, Yonah Peterson, and others to make a monument in the entrance to Arad. On the left, you can see how it looked back then with the car of Yonah Peterson in front of it. And they erected those stones, those potato stones, one on top of the other, connected them with a strong wire, metal wire from within. So they drilled all of them and made this statue that or sculpture that is connected so much to the environment. In Hebrew, we call it, or in Arabic, we call it rujum. Rujum is a pile of stones that in the desert, when you walk the trails, it shows you where to go, where is the right path, or different symbols. But here in Arad, you can see on the right, there is a little piece of metal here or structure. This is a garden in which the people of Arad commemorate the soldiers who fell in the wars. Interestingly, Gideon Friedman and Yonah Peterson, when they made this piece of art, they took their inspiration from a statue in Romania. This was made in 1938, some, I would say, 24 years before the Arad one. It's made of concrete, but they made 14 different pieces. It is called the Endless Column, and it is a memorial for the soldiers who died in the First World War. And after this, or as a tribute to this work of art, they established this one in Arad, that both of them are memorial for soldiers. Interesting is the fact that for deaf people in sign language, they have a name for every city. So how do you name different cities? You choose something that is symbolizing the city. For the deaf community in Israel, in sign language, they symbolize this tower as the symbol of Arad. So when you symbolize this tower, you mean Arad. Behind it, you can see the roof of the city market that is open one day in the week. And after we mentioned the fallen, not far away from there, also in the entrance to the city, you can see in the sign the word here, Musa. Musa is the legendary pub of Arad that was established in 1985. One time on the way, it was burnt and later rebuilt. But this, if you are from Arad, you don't say, let's go to the Musa, but you say, let's go to Musa. Musa in Hebrew is a way to say muse. Maybe, the spiritual connection. Oh, Mek. So here we are in Musa. Let's visit inside and see this legendary pub. My wife Avigal, that was born to Brian and Marilyn, and was raised in Arad. This was the place where they always went. You can see the many scarves of soccer teams from all over the world. Maybe you recognize your favorite one going around the walls. And of course, in the TV, there will be a soccer game shown for the people. And here is another angle to the bar. There are musical concerts once a week now, in the holidays and in the summer. You can have their famous burger and many other dishes, beautiful dishes. So it's even if you don't stop, if you don't stay for the night in Arad, and you're just on your way to the Dead Sea, it's a wonderful place to stop on the way. And from the art of food to another piece of art, one of the most famous artists of Israel, Yigal Tomarkin, built this beautiful work of art that is called a lookout, or Arad lookout, sometimes also called a Moab lookout. And why Moab lookout? Because if you see in the horizon of this picture, you can see the mountains of Moab. This is behind the Great Rift Valley. In the bottom of the valley, you can see the Dead Sea and the pools of the Dead Sea industry. And these are the mountains where Moses was standing on top of the mountain, looking into the promised land, but could not cross and enter. And Joshua took over to lead the Israelites from there into the promised land. This work of art was made, when it was done, it was exposed concrete, colored with colors yellow, green, and red. But later, with the permission of Yigal Tomarkin, it was painted blue and white with a little bit of a tribute to the Israeli flag. Just behind the camera, there is a sign saying, don't climb the statue, but of course, look at this round plate. How can you not climb it and sit on top? In the beginning, and Yigal Tomarkin is in many of his creation, he was promoting anti-war concepts and turning the swords into plowshares, if I quote correctly. There were pieces of weapon integrated into the statue, but they were stolen as the price of iron rose up. These weapons of metal were stolen and never returned. So this is one of the most iconic statues and places of Arad. You can see, maybe you can feel how quiet it is there. A beautiful monument on a promenade. And if you don't come in a day of a festival, then you will walk here quietly and you can have the whole place for yourself. And many people come also to see the sunrise there. As you can see, the local children are playing on it, despite the warnings. It's really difficult to not to. And maybe one last look toward the mountains of Moab and the Dead Sea in the bottom. Yigal Tomarkin has many statues around Israel. In Rabin Square in Tel Aviv, he has a monument for the Holocaust. Also in Yad Vashem. So he's, and this is 1968. A little walk in the street, you can see the fences of Arad, the fences of the homes, and here the fences around the path are covered with flint stones, those dark stones all around. And this is a little glimpse into a neighborhood. You can see the quiet streets. One thing that is fascinating about Arad is that in the first years, every person that wanted to come and live in Arad had to pass a committee. They wanted only people who will contribute to the development of the city. And they took only professional people on the first years. And later, this trend has kept on in different aspects, which is very different from every other desert town that was built in Israel, or a peripheral town that was built, where newcomers many times with much less education were placed in isolated places. This place started its way with the educated population. And we are going on with our artistic visit to Arad. This is Itzik Gamliel. Itzik Gamliel is one of the most notable artists of Arad today. He is father of four, 3 boys and 1 girl, and they moved to Arad in 1976. His wife Yafa came from Morocco when she was 6 years old, and Itzik himself, she was teacher for primary school, and Itzik himself, since the age of 18, he worked as metallurgist all his life. Lately, he retired, and in his last years, he started to make this beautiful art. It's all made of metal, a giraffe full size, a dragon full size, if you ever wondered which is bigger, giraffe or a dinosaur. And his garden is full of beautiful animals. But not only his garden, he also donated of his art to the city. The city of Arad has one of the most famous things, and for me as a teenager, the most important thing to know about Arad as a 15 years old boy was that Arad has the yearly festival of Arad. A festival back there in the 90s, early in the 90s, that the streets were full of hundreds of thousands of youngsters. We took our sleeping bags, we slept in the streets. I was lucky to have an uncle and aunt and cousins in the city. So I even had a place in their house, but the streets were full of youth and of life and of party, huge, with huge rock concerts. And this was the Arad Festival of Hebrew Music. Actually, the word was is not right, because this year, just the last week, it celebrated its 40th year. Here we can see Itzik, the statue of the guitar of Itzik Gamliel that he gave to the city, symbolizing the connection to the music after he renovated it, and the workers are putting it back in place just a few days before the festival. Here, Itzik is working on one of the pieces. I spoke to his son Ido and asked him, Ido, what kind of person is your father? What did he teach you as children? And Ido says, our parents, Yafa and Itzik, always taught us to open our door, open our home to others, to love the neighbors, to love the others, and to be generous and open. Also, to promote equality in society. So here, Itzik is working on, maybe you can guess what animal this is going to be. So this is the scaffold of a camel. And here is the next step, covered with metal, and the end colored well and ready to be placed in the festival. So Itzik and Yafa also hold the Airbnb in their yard. So if you go to Arad, you can even enjoy a stay in their home with a deep explanation to the art, to see the garage and the workshop. And if we see a camel, here is a real one. And we will go back to these beautiful creatures later. Finishing our artistic visit, this is the artist quarter, but this is a day before the festival begins. All the preparations are done, the chairs are ready, but the streets are empty. So you can see 3 youngsters of a band practicing before the show. This is a small stage, and they are maybe they are making the balance before the show. But if you come before the festival or after the festival, the city is super quiet. It's one of the most quiet places in Israel. But when you come in the days of the festival, the streets are full of people, the concerts are playing, not as big as they used to be in the 90s, but still quite big. maybe some of you remember, but in 1995, Machina, the great band, the first band that I watched a live concert, they announced that they break up and they will not play anymore. And everybody wanted to get a ticket. I got 4 tickets from me and for my friends. We were waiting in the entrance to the concert. But we were never allowed to enter because there was a disaster, stampede, and 3 people got killed there because of too many tickets were sold, more than it was allowed. And this year, it was 95, if I remember correctly, or 94, the festival that used to hold hundreds of thousands of people never went back to these numbers. So still you can see the people coming to party, but not in the same numbers and not with the same atmosphere. And the pain of this disaster has stayed in the air whenever you are talking about this beautiful festival of Hebrew music. Many people are crying and asking, please, let's go back to the beauty of the good old days. If we saw the camel, here is the camel in the streets, a bit of the atmosphere around. If we missed it, the festival of Arad last week. And here in another angle to the commercial center that we saw back there in the picture from about 1980, we can see a family. The father is maybe going in the front, the girls are in the back. They are walking in the quiet commercial center of Arad. This was filmed 1 week ago, maybe a day or 2 after the festival. Wait a second, I see it blurry. So I don't know why. Okay, something is double here. But you can see through this strange view, the commercial center. Okay, this video is a problem. Anyway, this way or another, the population in Arad is having a shift. In the 70s, many people, the Wujes Ulpan that was established in Arad, brought many people, English speakers. It was an Ulpan for English speakers. So people from England, from South Africa, from Canada, from the United States came to study Hebrew there. And they created a generation, and this population of the 70s and 80s and the 90s, those families had a cultural life with a lot of with a theater and cinema and education, and in the last decades, as their children grew up and they have families on their own, this population has left the city, not completely, not entirely, but many of them moved to other places of Israel and into Arad, that is growing to now in 2% each year. Many ultra-Orthodox of the Gur Hasidim came to live in the city. Now it is estimated that they are about 20% of the population, with more than 1,700 families of the Gur Hasidim. So when you come to Arad and you walk the streets or in specific neighborhoods on a Friday afternoon or a Saturday morning, you will have a Shabbat experience, seeing all of them wearing the talith and going to the shul or back home. And this is the building that some of you stayed in. This is the Wujes building. The Wujes, for those of you who don't know, WUJS is standing for World Union of Jewish Students, an organization that was established in 1924, and Albert Einstein, he was not the founder, but he was the first president, and he had Chaim Nachman Bialik and Sigmund Freud as his vice presidents. Could you believe it? Later, the third president of this organization was David Ben-Gurion. So with such a start for this organization, with Einstein and David Ben-Gurion and Chaim Nachman Bialik, this organization established an ulpan that was early 70s. Thanks to this ulpan bringing the English speaker newcomers to Arad, thanks to this ulpan, I have my wife as her parents have met there. So this is and today it was renovated and it's given to young families and newcomers. In the 90s, many families from Russia came in the big aliyah from Russia, as 1 million Russians came to Israel. The Ethiopian Jews moved to Arad, and today it's a colorful city with the Gur Hasidim, the older population, the original population, and with this change of population and change of time, the festival of Arad changing its character. The Arad is making efforts to attract tourism in different kinds. Arad sees its future in tourism. And here you can see the plan that was made about 12 years ago to make the first car races in Israel. The length of it is about 1 mile. It's very small. And here from Google Maps, you can see the shape of it as it is today. It's short, but for Israelis, that's what we have. Some say that on purpose, it was shaped as a sitting camel. Can you see the camel? So this is the horse races, the car races. Now, not far away from there, you will go out, drive out maybe a minute or two, and you will find yourself in beautiful wineries, vineyards. These vineyards belong to the Yatir winery. Here in this picture, you can see something very special. It is very difficult to grow grapes for wine in the desert. The soil is tough. The sun in the summer is very hot, so you have to be an expert to make sure that the grapes do not burn from the fire, from the heat of the sun. And the wine experts, they say that if the sun hurts the fruits, it will make them jammy, like jam. So you have to cut the leaves in a way that they will protect the fruit. You can see the direction of the lines of this vineyard that are facing the wind. There is a little valley, and the wind goes through the valley. It's important that the wind will go through the lines of the grapes, so they will keep the grapes dry, and they will not be hurt from fungus and other things. But the benefit of the desert is the cold weather in the night, and in the winter, which helps the grapes grow. This is Eran Goldwasser, the main wine experts, and here they harvest or they pick by hand the beautiful grapes. This is Syrah, if I remember correctly. And here you can see as well the child is cutting with his cutter the grapes. And this is a Sauvignon Blanc. They collect all the grapes and make wine. And here, their new visitor center, Negev Yatir. You can visit there. You can have wine tasting with some snacks. A beautiful place just outside Arad, between Arad and Kseife. And also music concerts that are taking place sometimes there, the Yatir winery. And so we began with the desert, and we are going back to the desert. Maybe you can already see the dark stones that are scattered in this beautiful hike. and can tell me that these are correct. These are flintstones. And here we are on a families tour that is popular practice on Saturdays to go out to nature, whether it's in the north of Israel or south. Families of friends are organized, sometimes 10 or 12 families, and they go together and carry their kids on the backs. These are from Kibbutz Revadim, this group, and teach their children how to love the land through their feet. This wadi or valley, this is called the Nahal Kidod, named after the flintstones that makes the sparks of the fire. And there is not many plants that can grow in this place, but this desert plant is called the maluach, or in the English translation, the salty one. As the soil is salty, the maluach has a special mechanism of taking the salt out. It is taking the water with the salt from the soil, but it knows the plant knows how to take the salt out and deposit it on the leaves. So when you eat it, it's salty, it's edible, and it's a nice practice to when you make your salad with the vegetables that you brought from the not desert land, to add it as a condiment or as a salt. You can also pick it and grind it and make fried loaves of it. In the end of the hike, this hike, by the way, is about 2.5 miles. It goes out from the Arad or Moab lookout, where this white and blue statue, Tomarkin statue is. And it starts there and it goes into the desert and back to the city, not before you met the camels and their shepherd that is lying in the sun and watching his camels just outside the city. If you drive from or you look for a place to stay around Arad, one of the most popular and biggest places is called Kfar HaNokdim. Kfar Nokdim is a place that is developing for a few decades already. It started with humble Bedouin-like tents, where you can rent a tent and bring your group, even 30, 40, 50 people, and sleep on mattresses with sleeping bags that are provided by the place. But later you can see the stone art that was made. This is a water fountain. They develop more and more their art around. These are some of the rooms, the zimmer, like hotel rooms that you can stay, desert hotel rooms under the vines of the grapes, surrounded with different herbs that you can pick almost every herb here and to make tea. And here you can see a winter day just outside Kfar HaNokdim, which means the shepherd's village, where you can have an experience of riding a camel. As you can see, most of these camels are females because they are less aggressive and more cooperative. And the tourists, they come, they sit on the camel, and the Bedouins lead you for a little hike into the desert. Sometimes it's 15 minutes, sometimes it's 3 hours, depend on what you request. And there you can experience a meeting with this animal. And not far away from there, a short distance of walk, you can see Birkat Tzfira, the Tzfira pool, which is this pool that you see on the bottom of the screen, with about an hour hike away from the Kfar HaNokdim, this shepherd's village. You can reach this pool. Don't go over the edge, but just walking into the pool to bathe there in a hot day. It's for some it may be a little scary, but some others love it. And this is Nahal Tse'elim with the same pool, the same place, but on a day of a flash flood. So 2 or 3 times in a year, in a winter, the rain falls over Arad in this quantity, and it accumulates into the valley. This little humble pool that in the summer days everybody likes to go to swim in the green algae water, here in the days of the winter, it can turn into a very, very dangerous waterfall. As you can see, the amounts of water. This is backward, of course, for the art. This is Birkat Tzfira and Nahal Tse'elim. A beautiful hike, but not in a rainy winter day. Maybe last subject that we will touch is Sede Barir. So if you see here to the right on the top, this is the city of Arad. And here, the city of Kseife. This, when they built Arad in 1962, they wanted it to be between Beersheba and the Dead Sea. But what they did not know, that they built Arad on one of the biggest deposits of phosphates of Israel. Now, phosphates are very important for the fertilizer industry. And the United States used to be the biggest manufacturer of phosphates until China took over. And Morocco is also a big one. And here in Israel, we have some fields. And for since the 60s, these fields are being studied. And some of them, there is always the industry of that produces the phosphates want to harvest them and to make quarries, but there is a problem. If you can see this, this is the area of Sede Barir. This is one of the social issues of this area, and also environmental. What do we see here? If you look inside, you can see these roads that are leading to little communities. These are Bedouin communities. This is how it looks from the ground. The Bedouins are scattered all around the desert there, and they are building their shacks from metal, from wood, from fabric. They live there with their goats and with their camels, and with their solar panels, electricity. And this is a topic that has a big debate in Israeli society, because Israel cannot stop this traditional way that they live in the desert and they build wherever they want. So this is a big debate in the Israeli society. And with the field of phosphates that these settlements are placed on, there are more than 1,000 families sitting on the field. And if this field of phosphates will be turned into a quarry, these people will need to find a new home. And on one aspect, and the other aspect is that the pollution from the phosphates will fly to the nearby cities, Kseife, a big Bedouin city, and Arad, the Jewish city on the other side. So in the last decade, there were many environmental campaigns and fights in courts against the digging the phosphates, which did not start yet. And a little few pictures of the Bedouin people from Igal Slavin, a photographer that visited, was invited to photograph the celebration of a wedding in Kseife. Here they they roast their coffee in a traditional way until it's black. They grind it by the hand and make the coffee. And maybe a little dessert of the desert below Arad and Masada, taken from this paragliding experience. Maybe we can have some questions now in the 5 minutes that we have left, Wayne.
Well, Shahar, I'll try to get to as many as I can. This is our second bird's eye view from one of those the paragliders. It's really quite an amazing view to see it. Or that's not you on one of those things, is it?
No, this was no. I wish one day I will do it, but this was given to me. This video was given to me by Muhammad Mahroum from Nazareth. We already saw one of his videos in the north of Israel.
All right, we have so many memories. One of the things I love about our audience is always that they're willing to share both from their personal experiences and also share. We have someone put in a link to desert flowers in the area. We have people talking about their experiences that they had in hikes in the very area that you showed. Somebody who remembers seeing Naomi Shemer play in the Kolnoa that you showed, and Shirley, who actually performed at the festival in Festival Rod in the 1980s. So really an array. So let me try to get to as many quick ones as I can. True or false? Did Amos Oz live in Arad before his death?
Did what? Did
he live in Arad?
Who? Amos Oz, of course. Actually, the end of our presentation, okay, it's already closed, but in the end of our presentation, I have some pages that are dedicated to Amos Oz. Maybe a little anecdote about him. He began his days in Kibbutz Hulda, where he was dreaming to become a kibbutz fighter, and he chose his Hebrew name to be Oz, which means powerful and courage. In his last book, when he released his last book, he said that he wouldn't choose this name again, too powerful. And his dreams of becoming this rough fighter never came true because he was shy and he was always attracted to sitting and writing. This is what he really enjoyed, and he never managed as a 15 years old to play the soccer or get the girls like the other kibbutz men that he wanted to be similar to them. And his friend, in her eulogy to him, she said, "Thank God you didn't manage, because this is how we hide your treasures of literature." So yes, he lived in Arad. He was actually a neighbor of my uncle and aunt, and I remember playing with his boy in some of one of the festivals. I sat in his living room and had a little fight with his boy, Daniel.
Well, Shahar, it's really impossible to really fully describe the phenomenon of music concerts in Israel, particularly for young people growing up, and what impact it really has on the character of the country. And I think for many people today, lifting up the story and the heritage of the festival, even with the anecdote of the tragedy that you shared from the Machina concert announcement, is really just one of those things that to really fully appreciate and understand Israeli society, you don't have to it's not only people who live there like yourselves and are tzabra and are born there, but understanding the story of an Olim family as your in-laws, and understanding the kind of people who were attracted to Arad to build it as a planned city, and this chutzpahdik notion that they only wanted professional people there, and it attracted a certain group of people to help develop the character of the city. Those are the kind of things you don't necessarily get just passing through or even going to the festival. It's a small area. It's in a difficult temperature most of the year. Anybody inspired to go there now, like after the festival, this is actually probably a pretty good time in terms of the heat. I don't know if the flash floods start, but I know there are lots of gems that you gave us in this episode for people to explore, hopefully on their own, and to take a little deeper look at the history and the heritage of this wonderful place, Arad, way back to the history of early cannabis and other interesting anecdotes that you were able to share with us as well. As always, Shahar, this is a great way for those of us who have an extended weekend to really sort of do something special from our own homes to bring back nostalgia, history, tradition, and curiosity about this place, Eretz Yisrael. We thank you again for doing that with us. We're getting ready to enter the high holiday period for many, the beginning of fall and the change of season. We have over the next 3 weeks, 3 more episodes coming. You don't even have to wait a week for us. On September 6th, on Wednesday, we have Gabriela Weissenschur with our gallery program. On September 10th, next Sunday, a week from today, we've got Pilates, so you can actually get up and move around a little bit with us. We have a special program on a special unit in the IDF on September 13th. Come back to see more details of that before we take a little break during the Chagim period. Thanks everyone for being with us today, learning more about Arad. We hope you have a safe week and enjoyed our virtual tour. Thanks, Shahar.
Thank you, Wayne. I wanted to ask if anyone has pictures of the Wujus from your Wujus days. That would be wonderful to have, because I tried to find on the web all pictures of students. I couldn't find.
Okay. Any of our Bogrim, any of the alumni from Ulpan Arad and done by Wujus. If you have some of those student pictures Shahar's looking for them, we love to crowdsource information. So send it to us at AIFL and we'll make sure we get them to Shahar as part of the give and take. Again, Lihitraot.